Welcome to the analysis of Passing and Glassing by Christina Rossetti. This poem was published in 1880, and it's significant to note that in the 1870s, Rossetti was diagnosed with Graves' disease and suffered quite a few serious bouts of the disease in that decade. This means that she would perhaps have had a greater sense of her mortality during this time, considering perhaps what was important and less so in life, which leads, I think, quite nicely onto the themes addressed in the poem Passing and Glassing. In terms of structure, there's an irregular rhythm which could reflect the instability of a woman's beauty or value, as you'll see as we look at the poem, but there is a regularity of rhyme, with rhyming couplets and rhyming triplets as well. Between stanzas 1 and 3 provide a structure in terms of problem and solution. So in stanza 1 the problem is posed, and then in stanza 3 the solution is posed, which provides a link between the two. So in the first stanza you've got the refrain of all things that pass, and this reflects the passing of time and therefore the aging process, which is the focus of this poem. The metaphor of the looking glass, which you'll see repeated throughout the poem, reflects the extent of female anxiety, the fact that they have to worry about all of the things that can be reflected in the glass. So society impacts the way that they feel about themselves quite dramatically. This could be Rossetti being critical of Victorian ideals of beauty, and then you could link that to Maud Clare with the idea that Maud Clare perceived herself to be more beautiful than Nell, but she wasn't as successful in terms of marriage as Nell because she didn't have those personality qualities that Nell had. The metaphor of flowers is used throughout, and they act as a metaphor for female beauty because flowers, when they're cut and displayed, look beautiful, they smell amazing, and then after a few days or a week they start to fade, they start to wither, and they lose that spark, that beauty that they once had. And that's an effective metaphor for female beauty and the passing of time. This is complemented by the semantic field of death used throughout the rest of the poem. However, there is a modal verb here of must, which suggests a certainty about the fading of a woman's beauty or a flower, that it is inevitable that this will happen, and it should happen because that's a natural progression. And then she talks about women being laid down, which suggests passivity, which could be Rossetti suggesting that maybe women shouldn't be passive anymore, that they should actually get up and they should embrace their age, they should embrace their change in beauty. And then the metaphor of flowers is used further down here with a specific reference to roses, and roses are quite often associated with romance. So the fact that they are withered suggests that perhaps women over a certain age aren't seen in a romantic light or in a sexual light anymore. And as well, Rossetti writes about the roses being in the shade, which could be a reference to being eclipsed by a younger woman, similar to an apple gathering where women are isolated when they don't fit this perfect mould, and women come along after them who can take their place. There's the fallen peach image, which could link to fallen women, and the fact that perhaps all women at some point become a fallen woman or are treated like fallen women because they don't fit society's expectations. The enjambment used at the end of this line emphasises the phrase unlovely, out of reach, which really emphasises the isolation felt by women over a certain age. And then, as Rossetti likes to, we've got this use of seasons to represent the passing of time, and summer specifically tends to relate to sexuality and of being in one's prime. But it's a very transient season, it doesn't last for long, and perhaps this is what she's saying about a woman's prime. So moving on to the second stanza, we've got a slight change in the second line, where the first one was about the looking glass, the second line is about the tiring glass. The tiring glass is quite similar in that it is a dressing mirror, and this is a direct link to beauty, but also vanity, and perhaps the effort it takes for women to look a certain way. Repeated semantic field of death throughout. And then we've got the use of lavender flowers now. So we've moved on from roses, now we're on lavender. And lavender has links to purity and grace. But the important thing about lavender is even after it fades and it dries out, it still retains a really sweet smell and can still be useful. So perhaps that's what Rossetti is starting to say, that we shouldn't just discard things that are old and what we consider to be less beautiful, because they still have a use and they can still be beautiful, like lavender. So it's all about really considering alternative interpretations of beauty. And the third flower that's used are the violets, and violets link to Virgin Mary's humility, because she was quite often seen with violets and we consider her to be a pure, humble person. And the characteristics of innocence and modesty are the things that are heralded as important characteristics. So in a way, even though Rossetti is saying we should consider alternative interpretations of beauty, she kind of argues that unless you are noble and humble and innocent and pure, then you don't really have much else to go on. You can't just be who you are. You have to fit either a beautiful mould or a pure mould. The emotive verb of culled is quite powerful here, because it suggests that that's kind of what happens to women after a certain age, that they're just gotten rid of, and it's about the position of older women in society. And then we've got the assonance that links culled and cared. So these two opposite words are joined by the assonance and the alliteration. So this suggests that perhaps rather than culling, we should care for these women, and actually they do have a lot of potential and there is a space for them in society. The exclamatory at the end is a command to women. So this is where Rossetti's tone changes, and she requires women to think about what they're doing and the fact that they don't have to succumb to these outdated models of how women are expected to look. And also this is complemented by the change in rhyme here, which really makes that alas stand out. Final stanza. So we've got a change in this line again. So we're talking about wisdom's looking glass, and I think this reflects the journey that a woman goes on from being younger and perhaps obsessing over the way that they look, whereas when they're older they have a lot of knowledge and wisdom. And actually Rossetti is saying that that's one of the most important and valuable things about being an older woman. The antithesis of hope and fear and good and ill indicates the richness of life. So similar to the modal verb at the beginning, she suggests that there must be this contrast in life for you to appreciate the good parts. So you must have the bad to go with the good. The collective pronoun of our work creates a matriarchy, almost like a feminist sisterhood, about the idea of women working together and being recognised as a collective. The work and will is linked by the alliteration of the W, and these are the characteristics that Rossetti sees as being the most important characteristics for women, regardless of age: hardworking and having a good soul. This could link to the first wave feminism, which was on the horizon, the idea of deeds, not words, being the important thing. It's about how you act, not just about what you say. And the line here about "for there is nothing new beneath the sun, our doings have been done" emphasises again the inevitability and naturalness of ageing, and it links to the Bible passage "no new thing under the sun." So the idea that women will age, have aged, and will continue to age, it's a natural process. It's about how we react to it that needs to change.